future reference?
Yeah, it's going to be live streamed to my coaching channel. But, and there's already one of this class there from last year. So this one is just a more up-to-date version, right? I'm probably going to delete the old one. But most of our classes are not done that way. All right, we're going to get started because you're here. And if anyone wants to join the Zoom later, they can. Let me just share my screen. All right, welcome YouTubers. We're just getting ready to start here. We're going to talk about winning listings, how to work, how to get, be ready to kill it at a listing appointment meeting so that they are going to hire you. The goal of every listing appointment is to get the listing. So that's what we're going to talk about. Just give me a second here to get configured. Welcome, Zoomers. All right. So if you're on Zoom, can you just give me a thumbs up or let me know verbally that you can hear me and that everything's okay?
I can hear you.
So Jay, I think you're there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't hear you. Oh, it might be. I wonder if I have my sound off. No, my sound is on. All right. I presume you can hear me. All right. So we're going to get going. All right. So I have somebody live here and I've got somebody on Zoom, and maybe you're watching this on tape delay or a recorded version on the YouTube. So we're just going to get going. Here's what we're going to, I'll skip this. So what we're going to talk about today is how to approach a listing appointment. What is it that sellers want, right? You're going to go into this meeting with a seller. What is it they really want? How do you prepare for that meeting? When you're at the property, what do you do? How do you behave at the property? What should you expect after the meeting happens? And then I'm going to give you some resources and tools. So we'll just dive in. What you're looking at here is a report that was presented at Family Reunion. Family Reunion is our annual sales conference. It's held every February. And they do a big presentation about the market, and they talk about a lot of factors. But one of the things they talk about is what drives sellers to hire a real estate agent. What do they think the real estate agent's going to help them with? And notice how spread out it is. There's like 4 or 5 things that are over 10% of sellers say they want. The number one thing, but only by a little bit, is help seller market home to potential buyers. Sellers believe that an agent is going to give them broader exposure in the marketplace and make their home get the best price possible. Another thing sellers expect from us is that we will help them to price the home competitively to get it sold, right? And that we're going to be frank with them about what it's going to take to sell the house. If the sellers need the home sold for some reason, they're expecting the agent to sell it during that time frame and bring their wisdom and experience in play, right? 15% of sellers also want the agent to help them find a home, a replacement home. Sorry, I'm saying that wrong. Sorry, I didn't say that right. The 15% expect you to find the buyer for their house. They are actually thinking that that buyer might come from your personal pool of potential buyers. And so that's 15%. And then 13% are expecting that you're going to help them to fix up the home to help it to sell for more. Welcome to the people just joining us. We're just on the first slide, so you haven't missed anything. We're talking about what sellers want from their agent. And so more than 10%, 13% are looking to the agent, to help them fix their home so they can get top dollar. And then there are other things, help with negotiations, help with paperwork. And then there's a small number of people who want them to help them find a home to buy, and a very small number who say help them to create post videos for tour. 1% of people say that when they're asked for the number one thing. The important thing about this slide is that the variability is very dramatic. The variability is dramatic. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items at more than 10%. So that means that when you're speaking with clients who might want to sell their home, you need to pin down on what are their priorities, right, among this group. And maybe they have something else that isn't even on this page. So that takes us to preparing for the appointment. The first thing you should do when you find out that somebody wants to sell their home is review the property profile. The property profile is available to you via the MLS system you use. Also, your title escrow company of choice has a portal site where they offer property profiles as well. The property profile will tell you the ownership of the property. Now, that's very important, especially if the person you're speaking with is not the same person who owns the property. Remember, your listing agreements must be signed with the actual seller, not with their mother or cousin or brother or some other person. The property profile will also tell you how much they're paying in property taxes every year and what their mortgage history is on the property. How much was the mortgage originally? Has there been any refinances? So you're going to absolutely want to study the profile before your meeting. The other thing you're going to want to do is a market analysis, and you're going to want to compare to like properties and study all the neighborhood sales activity. And we're going to dig into that a little bit more. Remember that you can't just rely on, what the Zestimate is. That's what they're going to look at. You need to actually do a full CMA and study what that property, what properties are selling for that are like the one you're going to see. So one of the ways that you prepare is to send the seller a pre-listing questionnaire. I always recommend you do this. It makes you look more professional. It helps you to anticipate questions you're going to get. So for example, why do you want to sell might be a question on your pre-listing questionnaire. I have one that I can share with you. This is what it looks like. Email, mailing address, number to reach you at. Who are the decision makers, right? Because sometimes people may not be making the decision all by themselves. They may be getting help from a family member. You want to know who's involved in that. So I'm just going to fill this out so you can see the other questions that I ask. I also ask them things like, what kind of property is, what do they use it for? I think these are required, so let me just do this. There's like all these questions. Let's say it's a condo and it's their principal residence. Then I ask them to tell me about the house. If there's an HOA, what the HOA fees are, what do they assess the condition of the property, what upgrades have they made to the property, and anything else they feel is important about the property. So for example, I'm just going to put some stuff in here just so we can get to the next questions. Let's say they think their property is in excellent condition. And then let's say they did these upgrades. And this is, they think the property has this other circumstance you should know about. Next. And then I ask them to rank what's most important to least important. Now, this is one of my favorite questions. All sellers are usually motivated by one of these three things: getting the top dollar, getting it sold fast, or getting it sold with the least amount of inconvenience. If you just don't do the survey and you just go to the meeting, you should always ask this question, because it will tell you a lot about what the marketing is going to look like and what your seller's motivations are. And don't be surprised. Occasionally, number one will be least inconvenience. And price will be third. It depends on the circumstances. Then I ask them how long have they owned the property? Why do they want to sell? These are all pre-questions. What is your time frame? You know, some of this stuff you may already know, some of it they won't know. If you currently live in the property, where will you live after the sale? I'm moving in with family. This is no. What would make you, what, if anything, would make you decide not to sell? I love this question. Because it gets them thinking about the possibilities of why they might not want to sell it. Maybe there'd be a reason. If we found a buyer for you today, you prepare to sell the property now. Are you ready to move, basically? And so we'll just say yes, if we can get my mouse back. Okay, then I ask them about the price range they're expecting, how much money they owe on the property. There's a lot of questions for a seller questionnaire. It's longer than my buyer questionnaire. If they have a mortgage, are you current on your payments? Are you aware of anything else affecting the value? How did you hear about us? And that's it. And then they click submit. Now yours can look completely differently than mine, but it's really helpful for you to ask questions to prepare for the meeting. All right. The next thing you want to do is order a preliminary title report, ideally before you go to the meeting. A preliminary title report is better than a property profile because it allows you to establish definitively what the ownership is, right? The preliminary title report is verifies the ownership. If there is a discrepancy or if you have questions about who it is that you're meeting with versus the name on the title report, you need to talk about it with your client. Make sure that whoever is going to need to sign the deal, sign the listing with you, is going to be at the meeting and present. Because if they're not going to be there, you're almost wasting your time. You'll be giving your information to half of the people or one person out of a group, and not everyone's going to know what's going on. I always recommend that you prepare a listing contract, a physical printed listing agreement, and take it with you that you can fill in with old-fashioned way with a pen, right? Many of your sellers may not be computer savvy, may be uncomfortable signing a document of this status digitally, but even if they are comfortable with it, it's much easier to go through it on paper for many people than it is to go through it on a screen. Not everybody can read the screens easily. So my recommendation is to have a physical copy with you. It also gives you an easy way to refer to other people, like refer to specific things you're going to talk about with them. If you are doing this and you haven't watched our listing class, we have a class on taking a listing on the agent portal. I strongly encourage you to watch that class again. It's also a required class for new people. You're going to prepare, based on the answers to the questionnaire or based on what you already know, you're going to prepare a draft marketing plan, right? You're going to have an idea, maybe even in writing, about how you're going to prepare and list this home for sale. I have a 6-page document of all my service offerings that I then customize for my listing appointments. You may wish to print and share or provide a digital seller's guide. These are very popular. You can get them from the agent portal for free, and they can be customized for free working with your agent services coordinator in your office, whatever office you're in, a seller's guide. Very helpful. Yes.
Go back on how we say order and review preliminary title report.
Yes.
Does that cost something?
No.
Oh.
The preliminary title report, you can call the escrow company and you say, I have a new listing, or I'm going on a listing appointment for 27 Main Street in Vacaville. Can I please get a prelim? I need to verify the ownership. That's title report. I have a whole class on title reports, and we talk about not just ownership, but on liens and matters affecting title. So that's a good class to review, whether you're representing a buyer or a seller, to know about how to understand the title. All right. So that should get you more or less ready. But I did mention something about a marketing plan. So here are some things that you want to think about for your marketing plan. So the first question is, how are you going to promote this property? You can promote it off market. You can talk about it at your office meetings. You can talk about it one-on-one with individuals. You cannot do any digital advertising or postcards to the public if, as a member of the MLS service, if it is off market. But once you mark it as coming soon in our MLS, and you have it in the, you have it there, then you can market it to the general public. But sometimes there'll be a property where you want to promote it off market. Can you guys think of an example of a property you would want to promote, not put it on the MLS? Anyone on Zoom is welcome to chime in. Why would a seller want to sell a property off market without promoting it on the internet?
Sometimes they don't have a budget to do staging or other fixing, so they just want to see if somebody could just buy it.
So usually that doesn't necessarily mean don't put it on the internet. So when we say MLS, multiple listing service, all internet listings start on the MLS. That's where agents put them. So that just because they're not going to do staging doesn't mean they're not going to want to put it on the internet and tell people about it. You can always, you'll see lots of properties on the MLS and the internet that have no staging.
Or fixing. Like if they don't have
maybe it's a fixer upper, that might be on the MLS too. No, the reason why they would want to sell it off market is if they're concerned about their privacy and they don't want to put a sign in the yard and they don't want the general public to know. And they're hoping you can find them a buyer fast without it becoming without a lot of people knowing about it, except the people that you bring to them. So the main reason is privacy, okay? It hurts your ability to get them top dollar, but if their main concern isn't top dollar, their main concern is getting it sold quickly, and you have an investor buyer, and it's a flip property, and the property needs a lot of work. I've had several of these. And of course, the MLS. Once you as an agent put it in the MLS, either as a coming soon or as an active listing, then it's all over the internet. Everybody knows about it, and you get the maximum exposure. So you want to talk about that with your client. It isn't always obvious that they'll want to sell it on the open market. What is your open house plan? You want to make sure you talk with them about public open houses, weekends, evenings. When are you going to have open houses for them? How are you going to tell their neighbors about the property? Are you going to do door knocking? Are you going to send out postcards? Are you going to invite the neighbors to their own private open house before the rest of the public open house happens? Are you going to do any postcards, direct mail? How will you reach other agents besides through the MLS? Now, this is a big one. The best agents are not simply posting it on the MLS and hoping the buyers will come. The best agents are reaching out to other agents in a systematic way to make sure agents who might have a buyer for them know about this property. What's going to be the way you do that? Where are you going to find the agents to target them? How are you going to reach them? What are you going to say to them? Another thing, sorry, question?
No, I was saying one of the way is to go to the Tri-City meetings and all.
Yes, that's right. You will reach other agents by going to marketing meetings of your local board. In the Fremont Market Center, that's the Tri-City marketing meeting. Bridge MLS has one Monday mornings at the board office. And there's two of them for our Palo Alto agents. How will you receive and review offers? There in our area, two main ways that we receive offers for our listings. One is to simply advertise, we'll take an offer, send it to us whenever you want. And the other is to set an offer deadline. The seller will only look at offers after 5 p.m. on Tuesday. If you send me an offer before 5 p.m. Tuesday, it'll go in the pile and we won't be looking at it until after 5 p.m. Tuesday. So that's the two basic ways. So one of the things you want to think about as you can continue to prepare for the appointment is something called the seller net sheet. You should never go to the appointment without a seller net sheet ready to go. It will tell your seller actual cash that they're going to get at the end of the day if they sell the house at a certain price. So you should create a draft one for your meeting, subject to changing it either during the appointment or after the appointment. There are digital tools. You can use software to create it on the fly as well. I recommend that you send a net sheet for the meeting. You have a revised one once the listing goes on the market at the chosen asking price. You sent a revised one once you've got offers for the offer price, the best offer price. And then once offers are accepted, once an offer is accepted, send a final one. So your buyer knows, your seller knows all the way along how much money they should expect to walk away with for their sale. Because sellers, they want to know the bottom line. That's what they care about. They're less interested in the high price usually, the list price rather. They're more interested in after they pay you and after they pay the agent for the buyer, how much do they walk away with? Now, there are two ways to prepare these net sheets. One is from Zip Forms. In Zip Forms, where you get the contract, there is an estimated seller net sheet. And also, if you are working with a title escrow company, the app they give you that you can use to find the property profile, you can also use it to create a very nice looking estimated net sheet. This is an example from the Zip Forms of a net sheet. So you'll see at the top, it has the proposed sale price. On the right-hand side are the dollars of the sale. On the left-hand side are the expenses. Okay, so the proposed sale price is 1.3. There's $750 a month of HOA fees. There's 2 loans, and they're anticipating a small credit for property taxes. And then when you get the sale price and you subtract out the 2 loans, and then you add in the estimated expenses that are, you subtract the cost of selling it, this buyer on this this seller on this one, if it sells for 1.3 million, they make just over $200,000. Notice there's no federal or state withholding tax. If your seller is subject to federal or state withholding, and they will be if the equity is higher than their capital gains exemption, then you might want to factor that in here based on numbers they give you. You are not to be figuring out their capital gains exposure, but they can tell you, and you could put that in here. But if they're not going to have any capital gains because it's under a $500,000 profit or under a $250,000 profit, like in this situation, then you don't have to worry about it. Okay. So this is a really helpful thing. This is not the prettiest one. You can get prettier ones from your title company, but the bottom line here is that your seller knows the dollars going in. If we list it for 1.3 and we get 1.3, I'm going to walk away with over 200,000. That does 2 things. Number 1, it sets appropriate expectations with your seller right from the very get-go. And number 2, it improves their confidence in you because it makes them feel that you know what you're doing, right? When you give them one of these. So those are 2 very important reasons to use this. Okay, we're still not at this appointment, but we're getting closer. One of the things you want to do is drive by the property a day before. Before you go to the meeting, go look at the property. Drive around the neighborhood a little bit. What kind of property? How does this property fit into its neighborhood? How does the neighborhood look compared to other neighborhoods nearby? How close is it to shopping? How close is it to freeways and bus stops and BART stations? How convenient is it? What is the curb appeal of the house right now? You can even be thinking about things you would do to improve the curb appeal that you can talk about when you go to the actual meeting, when you walk in the door, even before as part of your tour of the house. I recommend that you spend a couple hours the day before and look at active properties in the marketplace that this house will compete against. That'll make you look even better because you'll be able to, they'll tell you, what about 27 Main Street? That went on the market and he hasn't sold and it's been a month. After you've looked at their house, you can say, you know, I looked at 27 Main Street and that house isn't selling because it's got this very awkward bedroom off of the kitchen and it's very kind of hard to get to, and it's not very attractive, and the kitchen hasn't been updated for forever, your house isn't gonna be like that. Or, yeah, that new listing is gorgeous. It's probably gonna sell really quickly. They've upgraded everything. The staging is immaculate, blah, blah, blah. I would also recommend that if there's anything under contract nearby, you find out more about it. Talk to the buyer's agent, talk to the listing agent, see if you can get a sense of what it's going to close for. Because in the MLS, they're going to tell you the listing price and that it's under contract, but they won't tell you what it's going to sell for. If you can get an agent to tell you what it's going to sell for, or even just an about, that helps you with the conversation with your seller, and it helps you to helps them with pricing decisions to know that information. There are 4 major discussion points that you want to practice before you go to the meeting. I recommend you practice with a mentor, colleague, or a friend. What if the seller wants to list above the comps? How do you have a conversation with them? You show them all the comps. The comps say it should be listed at 1.3, and they keep saying they want 1.5. How do you get them to list it at 1.3? What do you say to them? What is your argument? We have all kinds of script dialogue tools for you to practice what to respond to that. What if the seller doesn't want to pay you your commission? You go through the form and the commission page comes up and you say, here's how much I charge. And they say, I don't want to pay you that much, right? How do you have that argument? What do you say to them? How do you protect your commission? How do you talk about buyer agent commissions? Because there is nothing in the contract with the seller that makes any reference to buyer agent commissions. Buyer agent's commissions are negotiated where? Does anyone know? Where does the buyer's agent commission get negotiated?
Buyer.
Yeah, where does it get negotiated? Who pays the buyer?
Buyer.
Sorry. Who pays the buyer's agent?
Buyer.
No. 95% it's the seller. It's a negotiation. On what form does it get negotiated? It's not in the listing agreement. The listing agreement doesn't say anything about paying the buyer's agent. So you, Patrick, are representing a buyer. You're about to write an offer. Okay. It is on the RPA. It's on the contract. So you have said, okay, let me back up. All buyer's agents sign a buyer representation agreement. That defines how much they're going to get paid. But it's negotiated with the seller to get the seller to pay it on the residential purchase agreement. So the seller needs to know that any offer they're going to get, they're probably going to be asked to pay the buyer agent commission most of the time. You need to have that conversation because guess what? It impacts how much they're closing, how much they're going to walk away with. This left-hand side of this commission, estimated seller proceeds, brokerage fee to seller's agent, brokerage fee to buyer's agent. So you need to have the conversation. These are the 2est big ticket. Look at all these expenses of sale. Your fee and the buyer's agent fee are the 2 highest item, 2 biggest, most expensive are the 2 highest closing expenses for a seller. Okay. Does the seller have to pay the buyer's agent? No. If they don't want to pay the buyer's agent, when they get the contract and they're being asked to, they can counter it out and say, I don't want to pay that. You can counter it out, just like any other term in a purchase agreement. Now, there's very good reasons why they should agree to pay at least some. I have a client in our coaching program in another office who just got into contract and their buyer representation agreement called for 3% to the buyer's agent. But when they negotiated the deal, the seller only agreed to pay 2.5%. Who pays the other 0.5%? The buyer does directly through escrow. So the buyer's agent gets their full amount that's on the buyer representation agreement. Now let's suppose the buyer agreement says 2.5% and the real estate contract says 3%. How much does the seller have to pay? No, 2.5. because escrow is going to want to see that they're supposed to pay them. That you're never allowed to take more commission as a buyer's agent than what is on your buyer agency agreement. So it is always better as a buyer's agent to write it at 3% and go down from there to 2.5% with a negotiation than to write it at 2.5% if the seller was going to pay 3%. Anyway, that was a different class. The important thing here is that you want to practice this conversation about your commission and about buyer agency commissions. The fourth main conversation you're going to be having is your marketing plan. So before you go to the meeting, you should be able to explain your marketing plan to your mentor or to me or to a colleague or a friend. How are you going to sell this property? What are you going to do different? What are you going to do that everybody does? Before the meeting, ideally one day before, confirm the meeting. This is true for buyer appointments as well. Any appointment, be a professional. The day before you have any appointment with any buyer or seller, confirm it. Worst thing, the morning of the meeting. I had a meeting yesterday, and on Sunday I sent a text. This is a simple text. Hey, Jonathan, are we still meeting tomorrow at 5 o'clock? And he said, yes, we're looking forward to it. Done and done. Right? Plan to arrive early. Traffic might stymie you. Other appointments might cause problems, but be the professional. Be there so you can ring the doorbell right at the time. Do not be late. It makes you look unprofessional, and it sets a bad first impression. Whether they're ready for you or not, you plan to be there early. I like being there early because even 15 minutes early, long before I ring the doorbell, so I can gather my thoughts and think about what I'm going to do in this meeting, and maybe some affirmations about how I'm going to get the listing. The other thing you want to do, I'd say within half a day of your meeting, is look at the MLS again. Verify that there hasn't been a new listing pop up or a new closing or a new property going pending since you did your CMA. You might have done your CMA 3 days ago. You want to know about late breaking news, right? Because it'd be very embarrassing for you if you get to the property and the next door neighbor has a real estate sign in the yard and you didn't know anything about it. That could be embarrassing, right? Because you're sure, I promise you, the person you're meeting with knows, right? All right. Now we're at the property. Finally, we're there. We're at the property. We're ready to meet with the client. So obviously you want to look both at the interior and the exterior of the property in some detail. What kind of things are you looking for? Anybody chime up? What kind of things are we looking for at the property when we're on site? But either one. What kind of things? Frame, foundation. Are you going to crawl into the crawl space and with a flashlight and look at the foundation? So maybe you're limited to just the outside. By the way, you could crawl the foundation if you want to wear gear. I mean, and it's accessible. Roof, are you going to get up on the roof? Just look at it from the ground? What are you looking for? Sorry?
So I would look for neighborhood, like, is there any kind of disturbance, anything, something, noise or?
Yeah. Any noises?
Yeah.
Is it on the flight path of the airport? Is it right by a BART station or a regular Amtrak, a regular train line? Are there a lot of street parties going on? That sort of thing. That's a good one. The other thing when you're looking inside is you are looking for damage, cracks, peeling paint, water damages, stuff like that. But you're also looking for, get a sense of a lot of other variables. Is the layout of the property attractive? What does it look like from the front? What is the landscaping like? How does the house flow for people to go through it? What kind of special features can you promote? So I'm a positive kind of guy. The first thing I want to look for is cool stuff that'll make the house sell. Does it have an awesome basement? Some older homes have beautiful basements. Does it have an ADU or a space of the house that could be used for an ADU in the lot or something? Does it have a beautiful garden? Does the kitchen have a certain features like a built-in, a beautiful big pantry or a double fridge? Or is there any, extra rooms that could be used for the different purpose that would make them more attractive that are in the house? There's lots of things to think about. Think about it as if you were a buyer, what would you see, right?
Dated.
Dated, yes. What is how up to date is what kind of countertops are there? What kind of appliances? You know, the more dated it is. So if you go to a house that hasn't had its carpet changed since 1970, you're going to notice it. That orange shag really stands out, right? Stuff like that. Your job when you're meeting with the seller is to get very clear on their needs and priorities. We talked about how to do that earlier. You're going to share with them your marketing plan. You're going to clarify the terms of the sale. What do I mean? Buyer contingencies. You're going to talk to them about how offers come in and how they're going to accept offers and what happens when they get into contract and how can they cancel if they don't like the buyer. If they've accepted a deal, what is the buyer's obligations for performance? When will they get their money? What about cash offers? What about financed offers? What about appraisals? You need to have a conversation with them, even if they say they are experienced sellers. You want to review all the listing paperwork that you brought with you, whether you do it on your laptop with them or do it in printed version. And that includes the net sheet of how much money they're going to walk from. And ultimately, hopefully, they'll sign the listing agreement. You'll have the paperwork there. It's quite all right for them to sign old school with a pen, or you can DocuSign it with them right there and then, right? I want to talk a little bit about the seller's needs and priorities. All sellers want the highest price with the fastest sale with the least amount of inconvenience. But what you want to work with them on is helping them to prioritize what's number one, what's number two, and what's number three. You need to discuss, you need to be thinking about how are you going to talk about the trade-offs. A seller says to you, I need this sold by the end of the month. I also want top dollar. And you're looking at the house and the kitchen is from 1945 and the roof looks like it's about to leak, even though you don't see any leaks. And the house has, say, an old floor furnace, right? Are they going to get top dollar if they have to sell it within a month? Some people are unrealistic. They just don't know how long things take to happen. So you have to be the bearer of bad news. And that has to be expressed in a way. Mr. Seller, sometimes we can't get all that we want. The Rolling Stones said best, you can't always get what you want. So knowing that if you had to choose between these three objectives, which one is absolutely the most important? Okay. And then if they still push back, tell them the story of why you can't have a high price, top dollar and a fast sale. They don't go together. If you want the least inconvenience, that will impact a fast sale and a high price as well. So you want to have good conversations about it. I recommend you practice these dialogues with your mentor before you go on the appointment. So after you meet with the seller, you're going to tell them you're going to customize the marketing plan even more. You've done a marketing plan for them. You know what how you're going to market it. But as you meet with them, you're going to learn stuff about their priorities and about other things that are important to them that are going to change your marketing plan. It will change the timelines, probably for sure. You want to tell them you're going to send them a new version of the marketing plan. And you could do that whether or not they've already signed. And how will you need to modify your plan based on what they say? Well, the timelines for one, right? If they tell you they need to be sold by the end of the month, you're going to scrap all that upgrades you want to do. And you're going to update your timeline to get it on the market fast. Maybe you're going to not, going to or have it staged. Maybe you're going to tell them have a more aggressive price, and whatever it is you discussed, you'll modify your plan. So one of the big things you're going to be obviously talking about with the seller is getting a good price. You're going to want to go over your CMA, your market analysis. There's a class that all new agents take on how to do a market analysis, but taking that class isn't enough. You have to practice and do lots of them, and you then get better and better at it. So you'll be working with your mentor on this, and you're going to be coming up with a good range of prices based before you go to the property. Then you're going to go to the property and you might modify your range. If the house has a bonus room you didn't even know about, an extra square footage in the basement that you didn't even know about, so you'll work with the seller and you're going to set a good asking price. Remembering that in some of the markets you serve, the asking price is artificially low. It depends where you're selling. So you'll review the net sheet again based on the chosen asking price. So you have the conversation with the seller and ultimately he decides to list it for $9.99 instead of 1.1. Your net sheet needs to be redone. You could do it in real time using an app on your phone. And then you can say, okay, you're not going to get 205,000. You're only going to walk away with 180,000, whatever it is. Okay. And then you can send them a printed version later if you wish. A big point of discussion in this meeting is going to be their disclosure obligations. Each seller's disclosure obligations might be different. Probates are different than trusts. Trusts are different than regular individual sales. Foreclosures have different obligations. So you need to understand the disclosure obligations. And the big thing about this is you must impress upon your seller the fact that they have to disclose anything and everything they know that will affect the value and desirability of the house, whether or not that's going to mean a lower price. So the seller says to you, do I really need to talk about the shooting down the street 2 years ago? So the answer to this type of question is always yes. Anything that the seller is worried enough about is going to hurt the price is something you want to make sure you disclose. Do you really have to disclose that 5 years ago you had to you had I don't know. 5 years ago you did work on the roof. You want to disclose that stuff, yes. In fact, the disclosure documents actually explicitly ask a seller, what work have you ever done on this house in your ownership? The way to explain this with the seller is via the DIO, which I think is going to come up here. We'll talk about that in a minute. You want to discuss offer presentation. Remember, I told you there were 2 ways. Take offers whenever they come in or set an offer date. You're going to want to talk about that. You're going to want to talk about standard offer terms the seller might want to see or expect to see. That's whole business of non-contingent offers comes in here. Seller may say, I want a non-contingent offer. That has downsides for the seller too. Those are worth talking about. Any special offer terms the seller may need. Anyone have an idea of what might be a special offer term a seller might want? Any guesses? Yeah, I want to take offers, but I need the buyers to do X. Yes, very good. Rent backs. A very common seller request from buyers is that they get to stay in the property after they get their money for a period of days until they're ready to move. So that's one. There are lots of them, but that's one. You have to discuss your commission. Do not avoid discussing your commission. Don't try to go over it. Be explicit about it. Mr. Seller, I charge 3%. Here is my 6 pages of services you get for my 6%. Here is the marketing plan I'm going to do for you. Here is my expectation based on the price we set of when you're going to get your money. Sign here. Now, they may want to negotiate with you, and there's all kinds of negotiation scripts and dialogues about having that conversation. And I don't want to get into negotiation right now, but never give it all up in one fell swoop. If you're asking 3% and they say, I only want to pay you 2% or 2.5% even, don't go right down to agree to 2.5. Maybe you go to 2 3/4 if you negotiate down at all. I don't recommend it, but you could. You absolutely can. And circumstances may justify it. You know, the agent who was in before you was going to do it for 2.5. Well, that's great. What did you think of their marketing plan? What did you think of their presentation? You know, have I shown you today? What have I missed that they gave you that you think I should have? There's all kinds of dialogues for that. And then, of course, discussing buyer agent commission. I mentioned that before. Please review. I mentioned this before as well. This listing agreement is, I think, 5 pages, and then there's several pages of disclosures. You want to review all of them in detail with your client, highlighting the sale price, the length of the agreement, the commission you're going to pay, the broker is going to get paid, you're going to get paid. What about personal property and all the advisories around fair housing, insurance, privacy, etc. How long can a listing agreement be in days, in days, months, and years? What's the maximum? No, that's buyer side. A listing agreement can be up to 2 years for residential property. I recommend you do no less than 6 months unless there's strong pushback. Allow at least 6 months. I personally like to have my listing agreements expire on June 30th and December 31st so that I have the some consistency. When I run my business, they all expire at the same time. I can manage it better. Okay, don't forget dates, right? All right. So let's suppose you're at the property and you've brought out your listing agreement. I wanted to share some tips on getting them to sign it. The first thing is be very patient, be very understanding, answer all their questions, deal with all their objections. Do not be evasive, pushy, or rushed. That's a big turnoff for people. So before you go to the meeting, the common things they're going to say are, we want to read the paperwork, we don't want to sign, or we still have to interview several other agents. What are you going to say to those things? Don't automatically say, sure, let's talk tomorrow, especially if it's a competitive scenario. Now, if it's your buddy from Milwaukee, and he's not going to work with anybody else, you don't have to be so concerned about these questions. But if you are in any way competing with anybody else, you need to be ready with answers for these questions. Sometimes a seller will be very stubborn about the sale price they want, and it's too high. Do not take the listing if it's too high, because it's a complete waste of your time, because you're selling a property nobody's going to want to go see. And also, you are setting a bad expectation for your seller that they're going to get that price. So if they're way overpriced, avoid taking the listing at that price. Now, sometimes you really want the listing. You think that maybe you can get the seller to come down on price after it doesn't sell. Then you write that into the contract. Mr. Seller, I really think it's too high. However, here's what I'll do. Let's do a clause in the contract that says that if it isn't sold in 30 days, we lower the price by 10% or 7% or 8%. No less than 5% price reductions, by the way. If you do a price reduction under 5%, the market ignores it. Remind yourself that we are not a discount brokerage. You are not going to compete on price or on your commission below what the brokerage standard is. When you signed with the brokerage, they told you what the minimum was. If a weird situation comes up where you feel it's warranted that you should take less than the brokerage minimum, talk to the brokerage, talk to the leadership. If you are in Oakland or Fremont office, that means Eddie Moran is the person you speak with. If you are in Palo Alto, it means Gene Gallagher. But you never have to worry about this conversation if you are clear on your value proposition. So all agents who are in this program do a new agent assignment, and one part of the new agent assignment is developing a value proposition, the kind of thing that makes it clear what you do, what you bring to the table. Why are you different than all the rest? Why would someone be advantaged by having you as their agent? You want to be super clear on that, because you can bring that to bear when you're having these conversations about pricing, about your commission. They're lucky to get you. You're among the best trained agents in the business. All right. So the appointment happens. They sign the agreement. Congratulations. The last thing is after the appointment. Please send a thank you note. It doesn't need to be a handwritten one, but those are the best. But certainly send them an email. Try not to do this via text. Text is so ephemeral, but emails last, just they're more powerful. A handwritten note that you deliver or you mail is even better. And you should absolutely do this if they give you something, if they feed you or give you a beverage. Show appreciation. If you haven't ordered the prelim, you should order it right away. You should connect with your transaction coordinator and begin preparing the disclosure package for them to sign. You should send them a marketing calendar that tells them all the things that are going to happen as you get the property ready for the market. And you can even begin work on marketing materials depending on the time frame of when you're going to market and what needs to happen. So these are links to some resources. You can create beautiful CMAs using the MLS, using Cloud CMA, or using RPR. All three of them are good for creating nice, pretty graphs and charts and market stats, and helping you establish a range for the sale price. Zip forms, you need zip forms. That's for our listing agreement, all the legal paperwork, some of the disclosures. If you use the KWA portal, it has a whole marketing section to help you prepare seller guides and other materials for your listing. You can also, instead of going to the portal, you can actually just talk to your agent services person. It's Harshita in Fremont. It's Sabrina in Palo Alto right now. And it is Connor in Oakland. As of October 2025, those are the people in charge of those things. As a seller's agent, it is your responsibility to make sure that all the appropriate legal documents are going to get signed by the seller in preparing for the market. It is not the responsibility of any transaction coordinator. So on our portal, there's a whole section on legal and compliance where you can find out the rules for what documents you're going to need that the broker requires. We also use a site called HomeLight, where is a web portal. It's a free thing, but you can pay for a professional version, which I think is worthwhile if you're doing a lot of listings. And it is for disclosures and offer management. It's become quite popular, and people use it. Instead of getting offers via email, people upload the offers to this portal site. So we're pretty much out of time, and we have about 5 minutes for questions. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, seeing no questions. If you would like a copy of this PowerPoint deck, slide deck, it's not PowerPoint, it's Google Slides. If you would like a copy of the slide deck, take a picture of this QR code using your phone and fill out the very brief questionnaire, and my assistant will send you a copy of this slide deck. The name of this class is called Win That Listing. So when you go to the Google form associated with this slide QR code, you have to pick the class, and the class in the drop-down list will be Win That Listing. Everyone get it? Okay. Do you have it, Patrick? Are you good?
Yes.
All right. Good. All right. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Go get that listing. Feel free to contact me with follow-up questions and talk to your mentor and practice so you can be successful with sellers.